A Tale of Two Tailors. I had been called away from town for a few days, and on my return found Poirot in the act of strapping up his small valise. "Pray," said I, reaching out and grabbing his tiny paw, "open that case." Pulling away from my grasp with an irritated sniff and a twitch of his salt and pepper whiskers, Poirot popped it open. "Ah," I cried, throwing my arms up in despair. "As I suspected. Clothes for mice. You have been tailoring for charity in my absence, and neglecting our clients. Ridiculous." The mouse opened his mouth to speak. "Yes, I know the materials are yours, and today is a holiday," I snapped. "But if you don't start taking things seriously, I'll find someone who will." The mouse stared down at his little valise, tiny garments scattered across the floor. It was difficult, but one had to be firm. With years of fine tailoring beneath his tiny belt, Poirot could have been the darling of the haute couture scene. Modesty prevented it. He scurried from praise and flattery, laying the credit at the door of some aspiring apprentice instead. Moles, voles, and shrews rose through the ranks, but not Poirot. He alone remained unknown and unrecognized. When his last protégé left, he came to me, the fox. We met in my consulting chambers. A fox being approached by a mouse is rather novel. Apologizing that it was all I could muster for a client of his stature at such short notice, I produced a footstool, usually reserved for my muster-led folk. He took it with grace, and we set to business. Could I, he wondered, provide the face for his burgeoning tailoring business? The request was quaint, yet oddly logical. I, a young, fashionable, foppish fox about town, with connections to all the right people. He, a stale, awkward old mouse, with exceptional talents, whose greatest fear was recognition. We agreed terms, and the venture was underway. Success was immediate. On balmy evenings, dusk closing in, Poirot would stroll by my side, as I toured him through the fashionable parts of town. There he would chuckle, twirling his whiskers, admiring his handiwork upon our clients' backs. It was to me, though, whom they addressed their thanks, the foxy tailor. As we grew closer, I noticed the smallness of Poirot's world. He lived alone, with no friends or family. Even his apprentices forgot him, lulled away by the glitter and glamour of their successes. Over many weeks, I succeeded in persuading him to move into my apartment. About a year following the establishment of our business, I, G&T in hand, sat watching Poirot sketching his designs. Now and then the mouse would add a little flourish to his work, chuckling with joy. I always relished these moments. This evening, however, was different. There was an emptiness. It was, I realized, a longing to be something more than just a convenient facade. I wanted to be what I pretended. From that day forth, things changed. I began to pick at Poirot's ideas, poke holes in his plans, suggest improvements, and offer critiques where none were requested. At first he took it in good part, but as time wore on, the effects took hold. Drafts were redrafted, ideas scrapped, changes made, and decisions questioned. "You're out of touch, old mouse," I teased, sensing his fresh insecurity. "Age and experience are very fine, but what of youth and good taste?" Grabbing a pencil, I joined him at his pattern. The mouse flinched, but did not protest. From that moment, over many months, I pushed on, inching ever forward. Sometimes I went too far too soon, and the mouse bristled. For the most part, though, I brushed his objections aside with ease, like so many toast crumbs from the breakfast table. Looking back, those moments marked the beginning of the drift. Rind remnants behind the settee, coins missing from the communal piggy bank, the mouse ever more withdrawn, ever more pinched and uncommunicative. I pressed on. At last the moment arrived when the mouse relinquished his last vestiges of power. Evening was almost upon us when I presented him with my last concept, an elaborate floral number with silver sequins and golden bells. He examined the paper, eyebrows raised. "Look here, Poirot," I said, laying a big bale of bright fabric upon the table. "This was far cheaper than the stuff you get, and so much nicer. Fantastic, eh?" The mouse snatched his paw back from the fabric the moment it made contact, as if stung. "Oh, Poirot," I laughed. "How dramatic!" "And these," I said, indicating the valise Poirot had packed with our latest creations. "I'm having finished in town." I settled upon the chaise longue. The collars, waistbands, and so forth will be inscribed with my name, and a small emblem stitched in my likeness. The mouse remained silent. "I say," I called from my nest among the cushions, "guess how much it's eaten into our profits?" The mouse shook his head. "Not at all. The money saved on the fabric more than covered it. Splendid, what?" From that moment a new precedent was set. I would hand Poirot my patterns, and awaken the next day to find him packing the finished garments into my valise. All was not well, though. Whenever I passed Poirot in the stairwell, my attempts at polite conversation were met with nothing but a terse grunt or squeak. The friction was rippling into our business, and I wasn't sure how to stop it. I had waited for this so long. I wanted to bathe in my success, relish my place in the sun, even if it meant ignoring the dark clouds on the horizon. The clouds were moving fast, though, faster than I realized. Poirot began staying out late. I would hear the door click and know he was gone, lost among the labyrinthine streets and late-night cheese vendors. Morning would find him half in, half out of his little doorway, whiskers sprinkled with the stale remnants of strong Parmesan. The mouse grew more listless by the day. He did not exist, but drift. Whenever we bumped into one another in town, I would try and resurrect our old pastime, spotting our fashionable clients out and about, modelling our creations. This endeavour, I soon realized, was doomed. Business had slowed. There were no specimens to be found. In any case, Poirot showed no interest, so the deficiency went unnoticed. I awoke to an urgent summons from Lady Crabtree. She had arisen to find her tailor of 40 years absconded, her dress half finished, and her 60th birthday ball mere hours away. The dress was to be particularly splendid, too, encircled by 60 tiers of taffeta, each depicting a year of her ladyship's life in rich embroidery, and to finish, 100,000 freshwater pearls, harvested from her great-grandmother's wedding dress. I rushed to the lady's residence, picked up the dress, pearls, trimmings, and fabrics, took a quick turn about town before heading back to my apartment. Pushing Poirot's door open, I peered inside. The room was filthy. Mouldering cheese rinds littered the floor. Discarded fabric remnants lay in heaps. Pins, needles, and scissors formed a deadly obstacle course, one I had no interest in traversing. "Poirot!" I called out. "Poirot, are you in there?" A heap of especially rancid cheese rinds began to quiver and cough. A whiskered snout poked out, followed by a paw. The mouse emerged, scruffy, greasy, tottering, unsteady, eyes bloodshot. "Poirot," I cried, "this will not do. Lady Crabtree requires her dress immediately, and here you are revelling in your own filth." I threw my hat down in disgust. The mouse staggered to his feet. I thrust the dress into his hands. "Revolting," I muttered. The mouse looked down at the ground. "Oh, and Poirot?" I said, hand resting upon the door. "The pearls are irreplaceable, so do take care." That afternoon, after several gins in town to pass the time, the hour of reckoning had arrived. Had the mouse done it? Climbing the stairs to my apartment, anticipation mounted with every step. Heart in mouth, I pushed the door open. The dress lay upon my chair, fully formed and perfect. Relief swept over me. Poirot was nowhere to be seen. In his room, gorging himself on illicit cheeses, no doubt. That night, Lady Crabtree looked splendid. I beamed with pride as the compliments flowed. As the clock struck 10, head spinning with rhubarb wine, I staggered home. Upon entering the apartment, Poirot greeted me with a laugh, gesturing to the clock on the mantelpiece. "Look at the time." Stifling a yawn, I observed it was 4 minutes to midnight. By now, the mouse mused, Lady Crabtree will have opened all her presents, all but one. She opened them hours ago, I said, curling up in my favourite armchair. What a splendid night. A smile curled about the mouse's whiskers. Through the fog of inebriation, something scrabbled at the back of my mind. When, I thought, was the last time I saw him so happy? No, Poirot protested. He has not opened mine. It will be delivered on the strike of 12, wrapped in fine paper, topped with a bow of marvellous silk. Why bother, I said, adjusting my cushions. She doesn't even know you exist. What is it, anyway? The mouse curled his whiskers between his fingers. Oh, just a few pieces of paper. Nothing much. The fur stood up upon my neck, tingling down to my tail. Paper? The mouse adjusted his waistcoat, not a whisker out of place. The Poirot of former days. 3 minutes to midnight. Yes, paper, he yawned and stretched. A pawnbroker's receipt for 100,000 freshwater pearls, that sort of thing. I leapt to my feet. The receipt, the mouse continued, bears your signature. Scoundrel, I growled, bristling. The mouse waved me away. Come. Do you know what else is in the box? I sat down on the floor, panic creeping through my limbs. Else? The mouse nodded. There is a second receipt concerning the purchase of 100,000 glass or full pearls for a very reasonable sum. A steal, you might say. Backstabbing slander, I shrieked. It's a joke, a misunderstanding, I cried. 2 minutes to midnight. You used me like you use everyone else, the mouse said, words sharp and crisp. It's over, Hastings. My tail drooped, and my heartbeat quickened. Poirot, I sobbed, for heaven's sake, come to your senses. We are such excellent comrades. I tried to grab him by the neckerchief, but he slipped away. It is not too late, Poirot. We can stop the parcel. Poirot! The mouse danced around the clock as I swiped at him. 1 minute to midnight, he laughed. You're ruined, Hastings, ruined. He cartwheeled across the floor, somersaulting past the skirting boards. The clock began striking 12. Poirot danced over the carpets, leapt upon the cushions, and scurried up the curtains, squeaking with joy. Picture the scene, Hastings, he yelled over the din of striking clocks from his perch upon the curtain pole. There is a knock upon the lady's door. He pirouetted, pausing to mime the gesture of a door opening. Come in, she says. No, I cried, flinging myself upon the floor, covering my ears, trying to drown out the clocks. What is this? She says. You fiend, you wretch, you ungrateful, ungracious, unthankful vermin, I shrieked, hurling a teapot at his head. The mouse ducked. It shattered against the wall. A gift? For me? And so beautifully wrapped? Good grief, I screamed. Have mercy! She takes the magnificent ribbon between her fingers. The mouse slid down the curtain until our eyes met, madness sparkling in their depths. And then, Hastings, she pulls it.